When a Muslim man in traditional dress is forcibly removed from a crowded terminal, passengers breathe a collective sigh of relief until the truth violently collides with their assumptions. In a post-9/11 America, where TSA protocols, hostile stares, and whispered suspicions have become routine for some, a single forgotten family heirloom is about to trigger a public confrontation that forces everyone to face their darkest biases. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel, it's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. Chapter 1. The Wait. The Nashville International Airport hummed with the usual chaos of a Friday afternoon. Suitcases rolled across polished floors, announcements echoed through the terminal, and Ibrahim Malik sat alone, his hands folded neatly in his lap. He checked his watch again. Flight 247 from Chicago delayed by 30 minutes. Another half hour of waiting, of sidelong glances, of whispers behind hands. Ibrahim adjusted his kufi cap and smoothed down his thobe, the traditional clothing he'd chosen specifically for this day, this special day. "Excuse me, miss?" The woman's voice carried from 3 seats down, deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm not comfortable with that man. He's been watching the departures board for almost an hour, and he keeps checking something under his jacket." Ibrahim closed his eyes briefly. The something was a small velvet box containing a pendant, his late wife's favorite piece of jewelry. The TSA officer approached, hand resting casually on his holster. "Sir, would you mind coming with me for a moment?" Ibrahim stood slowly, dignity intact despite the eyes that now tracked his every movement. As he followed the officer, he caught the satisfied smile on the woman's face, her victory over perceived danger. Little did she know that in exactly 17 minutes, everything she thought she knew about Ibrahim Malik would shatter into 1,000 brilliant pieces. "This way, sir." The officer gestured toward a small, windowless room off the main terminal. Ibrahim had seen these rooms before. They were where dignity went to die, where explanations fell on deaf ears. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Another officer waited, a woman with short-cropped hair and tired eyes. Her name tag read Collins. "ID, please," she said, hand extended. Ibrahim reached into his pocket and withdrew his Michigan driver's license. American-born, Michigan-raised for 47 years. The officer studied it, then studied his face, searching for discrepancies. "You've been observed exhibiting suspicious behavior, Mr. Malik," Officer Collins said. "Care to explain why you've been sitting in the terminal for over 2 hours? Ibrahim cleared his throat. "My daughter's flight is delayed." "I'm waiting for her." "Your daughter's flight number?" 247 from Chicago." The male officer jotted this down. "And the constant checking under your jacket?" Ibrahim considered his options. He could show them the pendant now, explain its significance, the way his wife Amina had worn it every day until cancer took her 3 years ago. How his daughter Jasmine had left for flight attendant training shortly after, grief creating a canyon between them. How today was the first time he would see her in 5 years, but something in him resisted. Why should he have to explain love? Why should he have to justify waiting for his own daughter? "It's personal," he said instead. The officers exchanged glances. "Mr. Malik, we need to search you and your belongings." "You understand this is standard procedure when a passenger reports suspicious activity?" Ibrahim nodded. He understood procedure. He also understood prejudice. But today was not the day he would fight that battle. Today was about Jasmine. "May I see the item you've been checking under your jacket?" Officer Collins asked. Ibrahim hesitated. The pendant was the last thing he had given Amina before she died. It felt wrong to have it examined like contraband. "Sir, I need to see what's under your jacket now," Collins repeated, firmer this time. With careful fingers, Ibrahim withdrew the small velvet box and placed it on the table between them. The male officer picked it up, opened it, and visibly relaxed. "It's just jewelry," he said to Collins. "It was my wife's," Ibrahim said softly. "It's for my daughter." Collins nodded, a hint of softness crossing her features. "We still need to complete standard screening procedures, Mr. Malik. Please empty your pockets and remove your shoes." Ibrahim complied. As he stood in his socks, arms outstretched while the wand passed over his body, he thought of Jasmine. She had been so angry after her mother died. Angry at the cancer. Angry at the God who had allowed it. Angry at Ibrahim for not somehow preventing it. He had been lost in his own grief, unable to reach her through hers. Then came the call, 5 months ago. Tentative, awkward, but a bridge nonetheless. Small talk about her job, his hardware store back in Dearborn. Neither mentioned Amina directly, but her presence hung between them in every pause. "Would you like to visit?" he had finally asked. "When your routes bring you to Nashville?" Another long pause. "Then I have a layover next month, April 12th. He had marked the calendar immediately. Had closed the store early yesterday to make the 3-hour drive from Dearborn. had ironed his best thobe and kufi, had polished his shoes until they gleamed, had practiced what he might say when he saw her. "All clear," the male officer said, breaking Ibrahim's reverie. "Your belongings, sir." Ibrahim carefully returned the velvet box to his pocket. As he retied his shoes, Officer Collins spoke. "Your daughter's flight is scheduled to arrive in 20 minutes. Gate B14. You're free to return to the terminal." Ibrahim nodded his thanks and exited the small room, relief washing over him. The humiliation of the search faded with each step toward Gate B14. All that mattered now was Jasmine. As he approached the gate, he spotted the woman who had reported him. She sat rigidly in her seat, designer handbag clutched in her lap, eyes widening as she saw him return. Ibrahim felt a moment of satisfaction at her evident surprise, but it quickly passed. She was not important today. He found a seat with a clear view of the arrival gate and settled in to wait. The departure board updated, Flight 247, now arriving in 15 minutes. Ibrahim's heart raced. 5 years. So much had changed. Would she recognize him? He had more gray in his beard now, more lines around his eyes. Would she still be his Jasmine, with her mother's laugh and determined chin? Or had time and distance transformed her into someone he wouldn't know? The announcement came over the PA system. Flight 247 from Chicago has landed and is taxiing to the gate. Ibrahim stood. His palms were sweating. He walked to the nearby gift shop and approached the counter. "Do you sell flowers?" he asked the cashier. "Just those small bouquets." She pointed to a refrigerated case. Ibrahim selected a modest arrangement of yellow roses, Jasmine's favorite color. As he paid, the cashier smiled at him. "Special occasion?" For the first time that day, Ibrahim smiled back. "Yes, very special." He returned to the gate just as passengers began to stream out. Business travelers moved purposefully toward baggage claim or connecting flights. Families reunited with embraces and exclamations. Ibrahim scanned each face, bouquet clutched in his trembling hands. And then, there she was. Not among the passengers, but in the crew walking out behind them. Jasmine, in her navy blue uniform, rolling her small suitcase. Her hair was shorter than he remembered, and she'd lost weight. But the determined chin was the same. His Jasmine. She looked up and their eyes met across the crowded terminal. For one terrible moment, Ibrahim feared she might turn away, might have changed her mind about meeting him. Instead, she stopped walking. The passengers flowed around her like a stream around a rock. The other flight attendants continued on, not noticing her sudden stillness. The woman who had reported Ibrahim was watching, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief as she followed his gaze to the flight attendant. Ibrahim took one step forward, then another. The terminal seemed to fall away, the noise fading to a distant hum. There was only his daughter, only this moment 5 years in the making. He stopped a few feet from her, flowers extended like an offering, like a question. "Jasmine," he said, her name a prayer on his lips. Chapter 2. The Reunion. The yellow roses trembled in Ibrahim's outstretched hands. 5 years of silence, regret, and longing condensed into this single moment. Father and daughter, separated by death and grief, now standing 3 feet apart in the bustling Nashville airport terminal. Jasmine's professional composure cracked. Her lip quivered once, twice, before she pressed them together firmly. Her eyes, so like her mother's, filled with tears that refused to fall. "You actually came," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ibrahim nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He had rehearsed this moment during the long drive from Michigan, had imagined what he might say, how she might respond. But now words failed him completely. Around them, life continued. Passengers hurried to connections. Families embraced. Announcements echoed overhead. But within their bubble of silence, time seemed suspended. "I wasn't sure," Jasmine continued, her knuckles white around the handle of her suitcase. "When I called, I wasn't sure you'd actually come." Ibrahim found his voice at last. "I would have walked if I had to." The words hung between them, simple but heavy with meaning. Jasmine's eyes darted to the kufi cap on his head, the traditional thobe he wore. "You're dressed like—" She stopped herself. "Like I did when you were little," Ibrahim finished for her. "For mosque? For special days? For Mom's funeral," Jasmine added quietly. Ibrahim nodded, the memory sharp as broken glass. "Yes." They lapsed into silence again, neither knowing how to bridge 5 years of absence. The yellow roses remained suspended between them, a fragile connection. "Are those for me?" Jasmine finally asked, gesturing to the flowers. "Yes," Ibrahim said, extending them further. "Yellow. Your favorite?" "You remembered." She reached out and took them, their fingers brushing briefly. It was the first time they had touched in 5 years, and Ibrahim felt the contact like an electric current. "I remember everything, Jasmine." Across the terminal, the woman who had reported Ibrahim watched the scene unfold with evident confusion. She had half risen from her seat, as if uncertain whether to approach or retreat. A nearby passenger whispered something to her, and she slowly sank back down, face flushed. Jasmine noticed the woman's stare and frowned. Is something wrong? Ibrahim shook his head. Nothing important. Not anymore. He gestured to a nearby seating area. Would you like to sit? How long is your layover? 3 hours, Jasmine replied, following him to the seats. I fly out to Denver at 6. They sat side by side, a careful distance between them. Ibrahim watched as Jasmine arranged the flowers on her lap, straightening petals that didn't need straightening. I brought something else, Ibrahim said, reaching into his pocket for the velvet box. This belonged to your mother. Jasmine went very still as he opened the box. Inside lay a silver pendant, an intricate design of intertwined leaves surrounding a single pearl. She recognized it immediately. Their mother had worn it nearly every day of Jasmine's childhood. I can't take that, she whispered, but her eyes never left the pendant. She would have wanted you to have it, Ibrahim said. She always said it would be yours someday. Jasmine swallowed hard. I was so angry, Baba. The childhood name slipped out unintentionally, and Ibrahim's heart clenched at the sound of it. I was so angry at everything. At the cancer. At God. At you? I know, he said simply. You just kept going, like nothing had happened. The store, the mosque, everything. Like she hadn't just... Jasmine's voice broke. Ibrahim shook his head slowly. No, Habibti. I wasn't just going. I was surviving. The only way I knew how. A tear escaped, sliding down Jasmine's cheek. I couldn't do that. I couldn't just be in that house, walk past her garden, see her empty chair. I couldn't... I know, Ibrahim repeated. I understand now. I didn't then. But I do now. In the terminal around them, life continued its hurried pace. A child laughed somewhere nearby. An announcement called for final boarding at Gate B12. And still they sat, father and daughter, carefully navigating the delicate terrain of reconciliation. I got your letters, Jasmine said suddenly. All of them. Ibrahim's breath caught. For 3 years he had written to his daughter. Birthday cards, holiday greetings, ordinary letters about ordinary days. He had sent them to her mother's sister in Chicago, the only person who knew where Jasmine was. He had never received a reply. You did, he asked? Jasmine nodded. Aunt Salma forwarded them. I read every one. She hesitated. I kept them all. Ibrahim's vision blurred. I didn't know if they reached you. They did. Jasmine touched the pendant in its box. That's why I finally called. Your last letter? You said you'd kept the garden the way Mom left it. That the roses bloomed again this spring? They did, Ibrahim confirmed. Yellow ones like these. Jasmine's fingers traced the outline of the pendant. I dream about her sometimes. About both of you. About home. She looked up at him, vulnerability raw on her face. Is that still home? Is there still a place for me there? Ibrahim had to grip his knees to steady himself. Jasmine, your room is exactly as you left it. Your home will always be your home. Another tear fell, and this time Jasmine didn't wipe it away. I've changed, Baba. I'm not the same person who left. Neither am I, Ibrahim admitted. Grief changes us all. Their conversation was interrupted by a nearby commotion. The woman who had reported Ibrahim was speaking with a security officer, gesturing animatedly in their direction. Ibrahim tensed, his peaceful moment with his daughter threatened. Jasmine noticed his change in posture. What's wrong? Before Ibrahim could answer, the security officer and the woman approached them. Jasmine instinctively shifted closer to her father, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Ibrahim. Excuse me, sir, the officer began, uncomfortable. This woman has expressed some concerns. He's my father, Jasmine interrupted, standing to her full height in her airline uniform. Is there a problem? The woman faltered, looking from Ibrahim to Jasmine and back again. I thought he was acting suspiciously earlier, and I reported... You reported my father for waiting to see me? Jasmine's voice was cool, professional, but with an edge that made the woman step back slightly. For bringing me flowers and a family heirloom? The security officer cleared his throat. There seems to be a misunderstanding, ma'am. I apologize for the intrusion. He nodded to Ibrahim. Sir. As they retreated, Jasmine turned to her father, realization dawning. They searched you, didn't they? Because of her? Ibrahim shrugged. It doesn't matter now. It does matter. Jasmine's eyes flashed with the same righteous anger Ibrahim remembered from her childhood. They had no right. Jasmine. Ibrahim reached for her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she let him take it. Today is not about anger. Today I got to see my daughter again. Jasmine deflated slightly, sinking back into her seat. You've always been better than me at letting things go. Not better, Ibrahim corrected gently. Just different. You fight the battles I'm too tired for. A small smile touched Jasmine's lips. Like Mom? Exactly like your mother, Ibrahim agreed. He held up the pendant. May I? After a moment's hesitation, Jasmine nodded and turned slightly, lifting her hair. Ibrahim carefully fastened the necklace around her neck, his fingers fumbling slightly with the clasp. "There," he said as she turned back to face him. The silver pendant rested just below her collarbone, catching the light. "Perfect." Jasmine touched it gently. "Thank you." In the distance, a cell phone rang with a familiar melody, Jasmine's ringtone. She glanced at her watch and sighed. "That's my 15-minute warning. I need to check in with the crew for the Denver flight." Ibrahim nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. Their time together had been so brief, barely scratching the surface of 5 years apart. Jasmine seemed to read his thoughts. "When I get back to Chicago next week, I have 3 days off," she hesitated. "I was thinking maybe I could drive to Dearborn, see the garden?" Ibrahim couldn't speak past the sudden tightness in his throat. He simply nodded, hope blooming in his chest. "I'd like that," he managed finally. "Very much." Jasmine gathered her things, tucking the yellow roses carefully into her carry-on. "I need to go." "Of course." Ibrahim stood with her, uncertain how to say goodbye. Jasmine solved the dilemma by stepping forward and embracing him, her arms wrapping tightly around his shoulders. Ibrahim froze for a split second before returning the embrace, holding his daughter as if she might disappear if he let go. "I've missed you, Baba," she whispered against his shoulder. "And I you, Habibti," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. "Every day." They separated reluctantly. Jasmine adjusted her uniform and picked up her suitcase. "I'll call you about next week." "I'll be waiting," Ibrahim promised. As Jasmine walked away, she turned back once, touching the pendant at her throat. Ibrahim raised his hand in farewell, and she mirrored the gesture before disappearing into the crowd. Ibrahim remained standing, watching the space where she had been. Around him, the terminal continued its ceaseless activity, but he stood motionless, memorizing every detail of the reunion he had waited 5 years to experience. Slowly, he became aware of someone watching him. The woman who had reported him stood a few feet away, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I didn't know she was your daughter." Ibrahim regarded her steadily. Would it have mattered? The woman flushed but didn't answer. After a moment, she turned and walked away. Her shoulders hunched defensively. Ibrahim watched her go, not with anger, but with a weary acceptance. Then he gathered his things and made his way toward the exit, his steps lighter than they had been in years. As he passed the security checkpoint where he had been searched earlier, Officer Collins nodded to him. "Have a good day, Mr. Malik." Ibrahim smiled, touching his pocket where Jasmine's childhood photo had rested for 5 years. "I already have." Outside, the April sun was setting, painting the Nashville sky in shades of gold and rose. Ibrahim looked up at the passing airplanes, imagining his daughter among the clouds, and for the first time in 5 years, he felt something like peace. Chapter 3. The Return. The 3-hour drive from Nashville back to Dearborn stretched before Ibrahim like a meditation. As highway lights flickered past his windshield, his mind replayed every moment of his brief reunion with Jasmine. Each word, each gesture, the way she had touched the pendant before disappearing into the crowd. She had called him Baba. The childhood name had slipped from her lips so naturally, as if the 5 years of silence had momentarily collapsed. Ibrahim gripped the steering wheel tighter, afraid that if he allowed himself to hope too much, the fragile promise of reconciliation might shatter. "I'll call you about next week," she had said. Ibrahim had nodded, had smiled, had watched her walk away. But now, alone with the humming engine and the dark road ahead, doubt crept in. What if she changed her mind? What if seeing him had reopened old wounds rather than beginning to heal them? His phone sat silent on the passenger seat. He resisted the urge to call his brother Tariq to share the news of Jasmine's potential visit. Better to wait, to be certain, to protect himself from disappointment. Rain began to fall as he crossed the Michigan state line, fat drops splashing against the windshield. Ibrahim switched on the wipers and slowed his speed. The rhythmic swish-swish matched his thoughts. She'll come. She won't come. She'll come. She won't. It was nearly midnight when he pulled into the driveway of his modest 2-story home. The motion sensor light flickered on, illuminating the front yard where Amina's garden waited, dormant but alive. Even in the darkness, Ibrahim could make out the silhouettes of her beloved rose bushes, the curved path she had designed, the stone bench where she had spent countless summer evenings. Ibrahim sat in the car for a long moment, suddenly reluctant to enter the empty house. When he had left yesterday morning, it had been just another day in his solitary existence. Now, having seen Jasmine, having held her, everything felt different. The emptiness of the house seemed more pronounced, more painful. Finally, he gathered his overnight bag and went inside. The familiar scent greeted him, faint traces of cardamom and cinnamon, as if Amina's cooking still lingered in the walls themselves. Ibrahim moved through the dark rooms by memory, not bothering with lights until he reached the kitchen. There he set the kettle on for tea and sank into a chair at the small table. On the refrigerator, held by magnets, were photographs charting Jasmine's childhood. School pictures, family vacations, her high school graduation. The most recent was from 7 years ago. In it, she smiled broadly, arms slung around her mother's shoulders. Amina, already thin from the first round of treatments, beamed with fierce pride. It was Jasmine's college graduation. 1 year later, Amina would be gone. The kettle whistled, jolting Ibrahim from his memories. As he prepared his tea, his phone buzzed with a text message. His heart lurched as he fumbled to check it. It was from Jasmine, landed safely in Denver. "Thank you for coming today, Baba." I meant what I said about next week. Ibrahim's hands shook slightly as he typed his reply. "Thank you for letting me know. Your room is ready whenever you are." He hesitated, then added, "Drive safely when you come." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Finally, I will." "Good night, Baba." "Good night, Habibti," he typed back. Ibrahim set the phone down and took a sip of his tea, warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the hot drink. She had texted. She had reaffirmed her plans to visit. It was more than he had dared to hope for just 24 hours ago. Tomorrow, he would call Tariq. Tomorrow, he would clean the house from top to bottom, would check that Jasmine's room was perfect, would tend Amina's garden with extra care. Tomorrow, he would allow himself to fully believe that his daughter was coming home. But tonight, he simply sat at the kitchen table, drinking his tea, looking at the photographs of happier times, and allowing himself to feel, for the first time in years, the tentative stirrings of joy. 4 days later, Ibrahim unlocked the hardware store he'd owned for nearly 20 years. Dearborn Hardware had been his father's before him, a neighborhood institution where locals came as much for conversation as for tools and supplies. Ibrahim had practically grown up in these aisles, learning how to cut keys and mix paint before he could drive. "Morning, Mr. Malik." The cheerful greeting came from Dion, the college student who worked part-time in the afternoons. Ibrahim had called him yesterday, asking if he could pick up some extra morning shifts this week. "Good morning, Dion. Thank you for coming in early." "No problem at all." "Everything okay?" "You never take time off." Ibrahim hesitated. He hadn't told anyone about Jasmine's planned visit, still half afraid that speaking it aloud might somehow prevent it from happening. "Family matter," he said finally. "My daughter is visiting." Dion's eyebrows rose. He had worked at the store for nearly 3 years and had never heard Ibrahim mention a daughter. "That's great." "Special occasion?" "Yes," Ibrahim said simply. "Very special." The morning passed in a blur of inventory and customers. Ibrahim found himself watching the clock, calculating the hours until Jasmine's arrival. She had texted last night, getting in late tomorrow, around 8 p.m. if traffic cooperates. He had already asked Mrs. Haddad next door to water Amina's garden for the next few days, the first time he had entrusted the task to anyone else since his wife's death. At lunchtime, the bell above the door jingled, and Ibrahim looked up to see his brother Tariq entering the store. At 62, Tariq was 5 years older than Ibrahim, but moved with the energy of a much younger man. He owned a successful accounting firm downtown and rarely had time for midday visits. "So it's true," Tariq said without preamble, approaching the counter where Ibrahim was restocking receipt paper. "Jasmine is coming home." Ibrahim frowned. "How did you—" "Salma called me." Tariq referenced Amina's sister, who had been Jasmine's confidant during the years of silence. "She said Jasmine asked for your hummus recipe. Said she wanted to surprise you." Ibrahim felt a surge of emotion so powerful he had to grip the counter. "She remembers—" Tariq's expression softened. "Of course she remembers, Ibrahim. You made it every Friday night of her childhood." The Friday night family dinner had been sacred in their household. Ibrahim would spend hours preparing traditional dishes while Amina and Jasmine set the table with their best linens, regardless of whether they had guests or it was just the 3 of them. After Amina's diagnosis, the tradition had continued, adapting to her changing appetites and energy levels. Ibrahim had maintained it even after her death, cooking for himself and Jasmine in silent, grief-laden meals, until she had left. "I wasn't sure," Ibrahim began, "if she remembers being loved." Tariq's voice was gentle but firm. "Children always remember that, brother. Even when they're angry, even when they leave." Ibrahim nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Tariq checked his watch. "I can't stay. Client meeting in 20 minutes. I just wanted to see your face when I told you about the hummus." He grinned. "Worth the detour." As he turned to leave, Ibrahim called after him. "Will you come? Tomorrow night? For dinner?" Tariq paused at the door, surprise evident on his face. Ibrahim hadn't hosted a family dinner since Jasmine left. "Are you sure? Might be better, just the 2 of you first night." Ibrahim considered this. "Perhaps. But the next night, then? Friday. Like before?" Tariq nodded, understanding the significance. "Friday it is." I'll bring baklava from that place Jasmine loves. After his brother left, Ibrahim found himself moving through the store in a daze, his mind already at home, planning menus, imagining conversations, picturing Jasmine at the kitchen table once more. By 3 o'clock, his distraction was so evident that Dion finally said, "Mr. Malik, why don't you head out early? I can close up." Ibrahim hesitated, then nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Dion. I'll make it up to you. No need. Go get ready for your daughter." Ibrahim drove home with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He stopped at the market for fresh ingredients. Chickpeas, tahini, lemons for the hummus Jasmine apparently remembered and requested. The thought filled him with a warmth that carried him through the produce section and into the butcher's area, where he selected a lamb shoulder for the main dish. At home, Ibrahim began a methodical cleaning of the house. He dusted surfaces that hadn't seen attention in months, vacuumed corners, polished the wooden banister that led upstairs. In Jasmine's room, he changed the linens on the bed that had remained untouched for 5 years, opened the windows to let in fresh air, arranged a small vase of flowers from Amina's garden on the nightstand. On the bookshelf still stood Jasmine's childhood collection, worn copies of Harry Potter next to her college textbooks on aviation and meteorology. Her high school track trophies lined the top shelf. Ibrahim straightened each one carefully, wiping away dust, remembering the proud father he had been, cheering from the bleachers as his daughter flew around the track. The wall calendar in her room still showed April 2019, the month she had left. Ibrahim paused, wondering if he should take it down or replace it. Would it pain her to see it? Would it seem like he was preserving a shrine rather than preparing a homecoming? After long consideration, he carefully removed it and placed it in the desk drawer. Fresh starts required letting go of frozen time. By 7 o'clock, the house was immaculate, dinner preparations were underway, and Ibrahim had changed into clean clothes. Not the traditional thobe he had worn to the airport, but a crisp button-down shirt and slacks. He wanted Jasmine to feel that this was normal, that her return was natural rather than ceremonial. As he chopped garlic for the hummus, Ibrahim's phone buzzed with a text. Hit traffic outside Toledo. Might be closer to 9 p.m. Sorry. Ibrahim typed back quickly. No need to apologize. Drive safely. Dinner will wait. He slowed his preparations, adjusting timing to accommodate her later arrival. Outside, dusk settled over Amina's garden. Ibrahim stepped onto the porch, watching as motion-activated solar lights came on along the garden path. Another of Amina's touches that he had carefully maintained. The roses were just beginning to bud, early hints of yellow visible among the green. By next week, they would be blooming fully. Ibrahim hoped Jasmine would stay long enough to see them. He was so lost in thought that he almost missed the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Headlights swept across the garden as a small blue rental car came to a stop behind his sedan. Ibrahim's heart hammered in his chest. He stood frozen on the porch, suddenly unsure of protocol. Should he go to her? Wait for her to come to him? The moment stretched, endless with possibility and fear. Then the car door opened and Jasmine stepped out. She looked up at the house, at Ibrahim standing motionless on the porch, and their eyes met across the garden her mother had planted. "Baba," she said, and the simple word carried across the evening air like a promise. Enjoying our stories? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming content. Now let's get back to our story. Chapter 4. The Garden. Jasmine stood in the driveway, her overnight bag slung over one shoulder, looking up at the house she had fled 5 years ago. In the gathering twilight, it seemed both exactly as she remembered and somehow smaller, like a place visited in childhood and returned to as an adult. Ibrahim remained on the porch, one hand gripping the railing, afraid that if he moved, the moment might shatter like a dream upon waking. His daughter, his Jasmine, was here, standing in the driveway of their home, the silver pendant gleaming at her throat. Finally, it was Jasmine who broke the stasis, taking a step forward onto the garden path. The motion sensor lights illuminated her way, one after another, as if the garden itself were welcoming her home. "You kept it," she said as she approached, gesturing to the meticulously maintained beds and borders. "Just like you wrote in your letters." Ibrahim found his voice at last. "Your mother would never have forgiven me if I'd let it go." Jasmine smiled, a small, hesitant thing, but a smile nonetheless. No, she wouldn't have. They stood awkwardly for a moment, the porch steps between them, neither certain how to navigate this reunion on home territory. At the airport, roles had been clear. Ibrahim the visitor, Jasmine the professional in her element. Here the past pressed in from all sides. "I made dinner," Ibrahim said finally. "If you're hungry after your drive." Jasmine nodded and he stepped aside to let her enter the house first. She paused in the foyer, taking in the familiar sights and smells. The console table still held the ceramic dish where they all used to drop their keys. The walls still displayed the same family photographs, and from the kitchen wafted the unmistakable aroma of her father's cooking. "Hummus," she said, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "You remembered." "I remember everything," Ibrahim echoed his words from the airport. He gestured toward the kitchen. "Come, sit. You must be tired from the drive." Jasmine followed him, dropping her bag on a chair and leaning against the counter as Ibrahim moved to the stove. For a moment, she was transported back in time. How many evenings had she stood in this exact spot, watching her father cook, listening to him hum quietly to himself as he worked? "Can I help?" she asked, the familiar words rising to her lips unbidden. Ibrahim glanced over his shoulder, surprise evident in his face. "You want to help?" Jasmine nodded, already rolling up her sleeves. "I'll make the salad." They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the rhythmic chopping of vegetables and the sizzle of meat in the pan. It was Jasmine who finally spoke. "The house looks exactly the same." Ibrahim concentrated on stirring the sauce. "Not exactly. Small changes. The living room couch is new." "But my room?" Jasmine asked, her knife pausing above a tomato. "As you left it," Ibrahim admitted, "though I changed the sheets today and took down the old calendar." Jasmine resumed chopping, her movements more deliberate. April 2019. "Yes." Another silence fell between them, heavier this time. "I'm sorry I left the way I did," Jasmine said finally, her eyes fixed on the cutting board. Without saying goodbye, Ibrahim turned from the stove to face her. "You were grieving. So were you." Jasmine looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "I abandoned you when you needed me most." Ibrahim shook his head firmly. "No, Habibti. You were finding your way through grief. We each must do that in our own way." "My way hurt you," Jasmine insisted, setting down the knife. "I knew it then, and I did it anyway." Ibrahim crossed the kitchen and gently took his daughter's hands in his own. They were cool despite the warm kitchen and trembling slightly. "Listen to me," he said, his voice low and urgent. "After your mother died, I was lost. I threw myself into routine, the store, the house, the garden, because it was the only way I knew to survive. I didn't see that you needed something different, that my way of grieving left no room for yours." Tears filled Jasmine's eyes. "I was so angry, all the time, at everything." "I know." Ibrahim squeezed her hands gently. "You were 22, Habibti. You had just lost your mother. Anger is a natural part of grief. But leaving without a word? Cutting you off for 5 years?" Jasmine shook her head. "That wasn't grief, Baba. That was cruelty." Ibrahim released her hands and turned back to the stove, giving her a moment to compose herself. "The past is past, Jasmine. You're here now. That's what matters." They finished preparing the meal in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. When they finally sat down at the small kitchen table, Ibrahim noticed that Jasmine had automatically taken her old seat, the one she had occupied throughout her childhood and young adulthood. Some habits, it seemed, were bone deep. Ibrahim served the food: fragrant rice, tender lamb in sauce, fresh salad, and the hummus that had been a staple of their family meals for as long as either could remember. He waited for Jasmine to take the first bite, watching anxiously for her reaction. She closed her eyes as she tasted the hummus, spreading it on a piece of warm pita. "Oh," she said softly. "It's exactly the same." "Your Aunt Salma said you asked for the recipe," Ibrahim ventured. Jasmine's eyes flew open. "She told you?" "She told Tariq, who told me." Ibrahim smiled slightly. "No secrets last long in this family." "I tried to make it," Jasmine admitted. "In my apartment in Chicago, it never came out right." "The secret is in the timing," Ibrahim said. "How long you blend it, how the lemon juice is added, or maybe it just tastes right when you make it." Jasmine took another bite. "Will you teach me while I'm here?" The simple request sent a surge of joy through Ibrahim's chest. "Of course, tomorrow if you like." They ate for a few minutes in comfortable silence before Ibrahim spoke again. "How long can you stay?" Jasmine set down her fork. "I have 3 days off. I fly out Thursday evening." Ibrahim nodded, trying to hide his disappointment that it wasn't longer. 3 days after 5 years seemed like such a brief time to begin rebuilding what had been broken. Still, it was a start, a gift he hadn't dared hope for just a week ago. "Uncle Tariq wants to come for dinner tomorrow night," he said. "But I told him I'd check with you first, if you'd prefer it to be just us." "No, I'd like to see him," Jasmine said quickly. "And Aunt Salma, if she can come. And Mom's garden. I'd like to see that properly in daylight." She hesitated. "Will you show me?" "Tonight?" Ibrahim asked, surprised. Jasmine glanced out the window at the darkness beyond. "No, tomorrow is fine. I'm pretty tired from the drive." Ibrahim nodded, understanding. The garden had been Amina's sanctuary, her joy. It would be emotional for Jasmine to see it for the first time since her mother's death, to see how Ibrahim had maintained it as a living memorial. They finished dinner, and Ibrahim insisted Jasmine relax while he cleared the dishes. As he loaded the dishwasher, he glanced over to find her staring at the refrigerator photographs, particularly the one of her and Amina at her college graduation. "I can take those down," he offered quietly. "If they're painful for you." Jasmine shook her head. "No, they should be up." She touched the pendant at her throat. "We should remember her." When the kitchen was clean, an awkward moment ensued as they both realized it was time for bed. In the past, their evening routine had been easy, familiar. Now they moved like careful strangers in a once shared space. "Your room is ready," Ibrahim said. "Fresh towels in the bathroom. Extra blankets in the closet if you get cold." Jasmine nodded, picking up her overnight bag. "Thank you." She started toward the stairs, then paused, turning back. In 3 quick steps, she crossed to where Ibrahim stood and embraced him tightly. "Thank you for dinner, Baba." "For everything." Ibrahim returned the embrace, breathing in the scent of his daughter's hair, feeling the solid reality of her in his arms. "Sleep well, Habibti." After she went upstairs, Ibrahim sat alone in the living room for a long time, listening to the familiar creaks of the house, the distant sounds of Jasmine moving about in her old room. 5 years of silence, and now these sounds, ordinary, domestic, miraculous. Morning dawned clear and bright, sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows as Ibrahim prepared breakfast. He had risen early, as was his habit, and was just whisking eggs when he heard Jasmine's footsteps on the stairs. She appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep, wearing an old University of Michigan sweatshirt she must have found still hanging in her closet. The sight sent Ibrahim back in time. How many mornings had he seen his daughter exactly like this, sleepy-eyed and seeking coffee? "Good morning," he said, turning back to the stove to hide the sudden emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "Coffee is ready." "You're a lifesaver," Jasmine mumbled, making a beeline for the coffee pot. She poured a cup and leaned against the counter, watching as he cooked. "You still get up with the sun?" Ibrahim nodded. "Old habits." "The store opens at 9, Jasmine asked, blowing on her coffee. "Yes, but Dayon is covering for me this week." Ibrahim glanced at her over his shoulder. "I took time off." Jasmine's eyes widened slightly. "You never take time off." "Some things are more important than the store," Ibrahim said simply. They ate breakfast on the patio, the morning sun warming the spring air. From here they had a perfect view of Amina's garden, now fully visible in daylight. Jasmine's eyes kept drifting to it as they ate, though she made no move to enter it. "What would you like to do today?" Ibrahim asked, sensing her hesitation. Jasmine considered. "Could we drive by my old school? And maybe the mosque? Just to see them." Ibrahim nodded, pleased that she wanted to reconnect with the landmarks of her childhood. "Of course. And lunch at Hamadi's? They still make that falafel you like." "They're still open?" Jasmine's face lit up. "Definitely lunch at Hamadi's then." The day passed in a gentle reacquaintance with Dearborn. They drove past Jasmine's elementary and high schools, past the park where she had learned to ride a bike, past the mosque where their family had attended services together for years. Everywhere they went, memories surfaced, some painful but many sweet, forgotten moments of family life before cancer had changed everything. At Hamadi's restaurant, the owner recognized them immediately. "Ibrahim! And this can't be little Jasmine?" He embraced them both, ushering them to their table by the window, the one where their family had always sat for Sunday lunches after mosque. Jasmine looked around the familiar restaurant, her eyes lingering on the family photographs on the walls, including one of her parents on their 20th anniversary, smiling broadly at the camera. Ibrahim followed her gaze. "This place hasn't changed at all," she said. "Some things shouldn't," Ibrahim replied. After lunch, they returned home to prepare for the family dinner. Jasmine insisted on helping, and Ibrahim found himself teaching her the hummus recipe she had requested, guiding her hands as she measured ingredients, showing her the rhythm of adding oil to the blender. "You have to feel it," he explained as she frowned at the mixture. "It tells you when it's ready." Jasmine laughed. "Food doesn't talk, Baba." "Not with words," he insisted, "but it speaks in other ways." As the afternoon wore on, Jasmine grew quieter, more contemplative. Finally, as they finished the dinner preparations and waited for Tariq and Salma to arrive, she turned to her father. "Will you show me the garden now? Before everyone gets here?" Ibrahim nodded, understanding the significance of the request. "Of course." They stepped outside into the late afternoon sunshine. The garden was at its most beautiful at this hour, the light golden, the shadows soft. Ibrahim led the way along the stone path, watching as Jasmine took in the careful maintenance. The thriving plants, the signs of spring renewal everywhere. She loved this place so much, Jasmine said softly as they reached the center of the garden, where a small stone bench sat beneath a flowering dogwood tree. I used to find her out here at all hours, just sitting, thinking. Even during her treatments, Ibrahim agreed. The doctors said fresh air was good for her, but I think it was more than that. This garden was where she felt most herself. Jasmine knelt beside a rose bush, touching one of the yellow buds gently. These are about to bloom. Another week, perhaps, Ibrahim said. They're her favorite variety. Yellow like sunshine. Like the ones you brought to the airport, Jasmine observed. Ibrahim nodded. I wanted to bring a piece of her to you, a piece of home. Jasmine stayed silent for a long moment, her fingers still resting on the rosebud. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I never got to say goodbye to her properly. I was so angry when she died, angry at the cancer, angry at God, angry at you for not falling apart like I was. I thought I needed to escape to grieve, but all I did was run away from her memory. Ibrahim sat on the stone bench, giving Jasmine space for the emotions that were clearly overwhelming her. Your mother understood, Habibti. She knew you better than anyone. But I didn't understand, Jasmine insisted, looking up at him with tear-filled eyes. I didn't understand that you were grieving too, just differently. That maintaining her garden, keeping our home the same, coming to the store every day, that was your way of honoring her, of keeping her alive. Yes, Ibrahim said simply. I thought you had moved on too quickly, Jasmine continued. That you weren't hurting like I was, but you were hurting just as much, weren't you? Ibrahim felt his own eyes fill with tears. Every day, Habibti. Every single day. Jasmine rose from beside the rose bush and came to sit next to him on the bench. I'm so sorry, Baba. There is nothing to forgive, Ibrahim assured her, taking her hand. Nothing. They sat in silence for a few minutes, hands clasped, listening to the birds in the trees and the distant sounds of the neighborhood, children playing, a lawnmower humming, life continuing all around them. I have something to tell you, Jasmine said finally. Something I've been trying to find the right moment for. Ibrahim turned to her, suddenly anxious. What is it? Jasmine took a deep breath. I've requested a transfer to Detroit Metropolitan Airport as a senior flight attendant. Ibrahim stared at her, not daring to hope he understood correctly. You're moving back to Michigan? Jasmine nodded. If they approve the transfer, and they probably will, they need experienced staff there. I'll be based here, living here. She hesitated. Maybe not in this house right away. I need to find my own place, be independent. But here in Dearborn, close to you. Ibrahim felt as if his heart might burst with joy. Jasmine, are you sure? Your life in Chicago? Is just a job and an apartment, she finished for him. This is home, Baba. It took me 5 years to realize it, but I know now. This is where I belong. From inside the house came the sound of the doorbell. Tariq and Salma had arrived for dinner. Ibrahim and Jasmine remained seated on the bench for a moment longer, reluctant to break the sacred space of their reconciliation. We should go in, Jasmine said finally, standing and offering her hand to her father. They'll be waiting. Ibrahim took her hand and rose. As they walked back along the garden path toward the house, he noticed Jasmine pause to look back at the rose bushes, at the yellow buds preparing to bloom. We'll be here when they open, he promised. The garden will be here whenever you need it. Jasmine smiled, touching the pendant at her throat. Her mother's pendant, now hers. I know, Baba. I know. Together, they walked back to the house, where family waited to welcome Jasmine home. Chapter 5. The Healing. The evening air filled with laughter as Ibrahim, Jasmine, Tariq, and Salma gathered around the dining table. Crystal glasses clinked, serving platters were passed hand to hand, and the warm glow of candles cast dancing shadows on the walls. It was as if the house itself had awakened from a long slumber, rooms that had known only silence now resonating with the sounds of family. To homecomings, Tariq said, raising his glass in a toast. His eyes, so like Ibrahim's, glinted with emotion as he looked at his niece. Long overdue? To homecomings, the others echoed, Jasmine's gaze meeting her father's across the table. Salma reached over to squeeze Jasmine's hand. At 60, Amina's sister retained the same warm presence and forthright manner that had made her Jasmine's confidant during the dark years. Your mother would be so happy, she said, voice thick with emotion. Seeing you here in this house, at this table, with her pendant, Ibrahim added softly, nodding toward the silver piece gleaming at Jasmine's throat. Jasmine touched it reflexively, a gesture they had all noticed she made when thinking of her mother. I haven't taken it off since the airport. Conversation flowed easily as they ate. Updates on Tariq's accounting firm, stories from Jasmine's travels as a flight attendant, Neighborhood news from Salma? Ibrahim spoke little, content to watch his daughter reconnect with the family she had left behind. The tension that had marked her arrival yesterday had melted away, replaced by a tentative joy that grew more confident with each passing hour. "So," Salma said as Ibrahim served dessert, baklava from Jasmine's favorite bakery, "your father tells us you might be moving back to Dearborn?" Jasmine nodded, setting down her fork. "I've requested a transfer to Detroit Metro. As a senior flight attendant, I have some priority, and they need experienced staff there." "When would this happen?" Tariq asked. "If approved, I could start as early as next month," Jasmine explained. "I'd need to find an apartment, of course." "Nonsense," Salma waved her hand dismissively. "You'll stay here while you look." "Right, Ibrahim?" Ibrahim, caught off guard, looked to Jasmine. "Of course she's welcome here, but I need my own space, Aunt Salma," Jasmine interjected gently. "At least at first." "Dad understands." Ibrahim nodded, though part of him longed to have his daughter back under his roof permanently. Jasmine needs to make her own way. "But yes, Habibti, you can stay here while you search for an apartment." "Actually," Tariq set down his coffee cup with a decisive clink, "I might have a solution. My tenant in the Oakwood complex is moving out next month. 2-bedroom condo, 15 minutes from here. It's yours if you want it, Jasmine. Family discount." Jasmine's eyes widened. "Uncle Tariq, I couldn't—" "You absolutely could," he interrupted. "I'd rather rent to family than strangers anyway, and it's close enough that your father can bring you hummus whenever you want, but far enough that you have your independence." He winked at Ibrahim. "Perfect compromise." Ibrahim felt a surge of gratitude toward his brother. Tariq had always been perceptive, understanding the delicate balance needed here. Jasmine's need for autonomy and Ibrahim's desire to have her nearby. "It's a very generous offer," Ibrahim said carefully, "but of course it's Jasmine's decision." All eyes turned to Jasmine, who seemed momentarily overwhelmed by the rapid materialization of her plans. "Can I think about it? I don't even know if the transfer will be approved yet." "Of course," Tariq assured her. "No pressure. The offer stands whenever you're ready." As the evening continued, Ibrahim noticed a subtle shift in his daughter. The cautious happiness she had displayed earlier had developed an edge of anxiety. Her responses became shorter, her laughter less frequent. By the time Tariq and Salma were preparing to leave, Jasmine had grown noticeably quiet. After warm goodbyes and promises to gather again soon, Ibrahim closed the front door behind their guests and turned to find Jasmine standing in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself as if suddenly cold. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern furrowing his brow. Jasmine didn't answer immediately. She moved to the mantelpiece where family photographs chronicled happier times. Vacations, graduations, celebrations. Her fingers hovered over one of Amina, her smile radiant despite the headscarf that covered her head, bare from chemotherapy. "What if I'm making another mistake?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Ibrahim approached slowly. "What do you mean, Habibti? Moving back?" Jasmine turned to face him, eyes troubled. "What if I'm running away again? Running back instead of forward, but still running?" Ibrahim considered his daughter carefully. This was the heart of it, he realized, the fear that had been building beneath her joy all evening. "Do you feel like you're running away?" Jasmine sank onto the sofa, suddenly looking much younger than her 27 years. "I don't know. Chicago was supposed to be my fresh start after Mom died. I built a life there, friends, coworkers, routines, but it never felt like home." She looked up at Ibrahim. "Nothing has felt like home since she died. Except? Ibrahim prompted gently, sitting beside her. "Except being here these past 2 days," Jasmine admitted. "Being in this house, seeing her garden, having dinner with you and Uncle Tariq and Aunt Salma. It's painful, but it's also right somehow." She shook her head in frustration. "I'm not explaining this well. You're explaining it perfectly," Ibrahim assured her. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "After your mother died, I thought about selling the house, the store, starting over somewhere new, where everything didn't remind me of her. But then I realized something." "What?" Jasmine asked. "That grief isn't something you outrun. It follows you wherever you go." Ibrahim's voice was steady, though the memories still ached. "I stayed because this is where I could feel closest to her, where I could honor her life rather than just mourn her death." Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. "I couldn't do that then? It hurt too much." "You weren't ready," Ibrahim said simply. "Maybe now you are. But what if I'm still running, just in a different direction?" Ibrahim considered this. "Ask yourself, are you coming back to Dearborn to escape something in Chicago or to build something here? Are you returning out of fear or love?" Jasmine was silent for a long moment, turning her father's words over in her mind. "Both, maybe," she admitted finally. "I'm tired of feeling like a visitor in my own life, and I've missed you, Baba. Missed this place even when I didn't want to admit it." Ibrahim reached for his daughter's hand. Then perhaps it's not running at all. Perhaps it's simply coming home. Jasmine leaned against her father's shoulder, as she had done countless times as a child. I'm scared, she confessed. What if it doesn't work out? What if I can't find peace here either? Then we'll face that together, Ibrahim promised. You're not alone anymore, Habibti. Whatever happens. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the ticking of the mantel clock the only sound in the room. Finally, Jasmine straightened and wiped her eyes. I should head to bed. It's been an emotional day. Ibrahim nodded, releasing her hand. Sleep well. We can talk more tomorrow. Jasmine stood, then hesitated. The woman at the airport, she said suddenly. The one who reported you as suspicious. I keep thinking about her. Ibrahim frowned, surprised by the change of subject. Why? Because she judged you based on your appearance, your clothes, your faith. She saw a Muslim man in traditional dress and assumed the worst. Jasmine's voice hardened. And the authorities listened to her, humiliated you, all because of how you look. It happens, Ibrahim said wearily. More often than I care to admit. How do you not stay angry about that? Jasmine asked, genuine bewilderment in her voice. How do you just accept it? Ibrahim stood, meeting his daughter's troubled gaze. Who says I accept it? I simply choose not to let it poison me. There's a difference. But how? Ibrahim thought for a moment. Do you remember what your mother used to say? About carrying around anger? A small smile touched Jasmine's lips. That it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Exactly. Ibrahim nodded. That woman at the airport carries her own burdens, her own fears. I can't change her heart. I can only guard my own. I wish I had your strength, Baba, Jasmine said softly. You have your own strength, Ibrahim corrected her. Different from mine, but no less powerful. You always have. Jasmine hugged him suddenly, fiercely. I love you, Baba. And I you, Habibti, Ibrahim whispered into her hair. Always. As Jasmine climbed the stairs to her childhood bedroom, Ibrahim remained in the living room, surrounded by the photographs of the life they had shared. The life that had been interrupted by loss but might now, against all odds, find a new rhythm, a new wholeness. The next morning dawned warm and bright, perfect Michigan spring weather. Ibrahim woke to the smell of coffee brewing, an unfamiliar sensation in his solitary life. Pulling on his robe, he made his way downstairs to find Jasmine in the kitchen, already dressed and cooking. Good morning, she said, glancing up with a smile. I hope you don't mind. I wanted to surprise you with breakfast. Ibrahim took in the scene with quiet joy. His daughter at the stove, pancakes browning in the pan, fresh fruit arranged on plates. Not at all. This is a wonderful surprise. They ate on the patio again, the garden vibrant in the morning light. Jasmine seemed more settled today, the anxiety of the previous evening replaced by a calm determination. I've been thinking about what you said last night, she began, setting down her coffee cup. About coming home versus running away. Ibrahim waited, giving her space to continue. I want to build something here, Jasmine said firmly. A real life, not an escape, and I want to repair what was broken between us. She met her father's eyes. I'm going to take Uncle Tariq's offer on the condo, and I'm going to call my supervisor today about expediting the transfer request. Ibrahim nodded, his heart full. I'm glad, Habibti. But there's something else I need to do first, Jasmine continued, her expression growing serious. Something I should have done a long time ago. What is that? Jasmine took a deep breath. I need to visit Mom's grave. I've never been. Not since the funeral. Ibrahim reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. Would you like me to go with you? Please, Jasmine whispered, gratitude in her eyes. They finished breakfast in companionable silence, then prepared for the cemetery visit. Ibrahim gathered a small bouquet from Amina's garden, not the yellow roses, which weren't yet in bloom, but spring tulips and hyacinths that added splashes of color to the green stems. The drive to the Islamic cemetery was short, just 15 minutes from the house. It was a peaceful place, well-maintained, with trees providing shade over the simple markers. Ibrahim led the way along familiar paths to where Amina's grave lay beneath a flowering cherry tree. Jasmine stopped a few feet away, suddenly hesitant. Ibrahim waited patiently, understanding her reluctance. Finally, she approached the simple headstone, kneeling beside it to trace the engraved Arabic script, Amina's name and a verse from the Quran about returning to God. It's beautiful, she murmured. Simple. She would have liked it. She chose it herself, Ibrahim explained. During her last months. She didn't want us to have that burden. Jasmine nodded, not surprised. It was exactly like her practical, thoughtful mother to plan even this final detail. She arranged the flowers in the small vase built into the headstone, her hands gentle, I talk to her sometimes, Ibrahim said quietly. When I visit, it helps. Jasmine glanced up at him, then back to the grave. I wouldn't know what to say. Whatever is in your heart. Ibrahim stepped back, giving his daughter privacy. He watched as she remained kneeling by the grave, her lips moving silently. What words passed between mother and daughter, he would never know. But he saw Jasmine's shoulders gradually relax, saw her reach out to touch the headstone one final time before rising. When she returned to his side, her eyes were red but clear, her face peaceful in a way he hadn't seen since before Amina's illness. Thank you for bringing me, she said simply. Ibrahim nodded. We can come whenever you want, together or alone. They walked back to the car in silence, the morning sun warming their shoulders. As they drove home, Jasmine looked out the window at the familiar streets of Dearborn, the mosque where they had prayed as a family, the schools she had attended, the park where her mother had taught her to fly a kite. I meant what I said yesterday, she said suddenly, about taking Uncle Tariq's condo, but I was thinking maybe I could stay with you until it's ready, instead of finding a temporary place. Ibrahim glanced at her, trying to contain his joy. Of course, your room is always yours. Jasmine nodded, satisfied. And about the store. What about it? I was wondering if you might need help sometimes. On my days off, I used to be pretty good at inventory management. Ibrahim chuckled. You organized the entire paint section when you were 16. Most efficient system we ever had. So that's a yes? Jasmine asked, a hint of her old mischief in her smile. That's a definite yes, Ibrahim confirmed. Dayon will be thrilled to have backup. The boy can cut keys like nobody's business, but inventory gives him hives. They laughed together, the sound filling the car with warmth. It wasn't perfect, there were still wounds healing, still adjustments to be made, but it was a beginning. A real beginning. When they arrived home, Jasmine excused herself to make some calls. To her supervisor about the transfer, to a colleague in Chicago about subletting her apartment. Ibrahim busied himself in the garden, giving her privacy while staying close. As he pruned Amina's beloved rose bushes, he found himself humming, a habit he had abandoned after her death. The sound of the patio door sliding open made him look up. Jasmine stood there, phone in hand, an unreadable expression on her face. Everything okay? Ibrahim asked, setting down his gardening shears. I just got off the phone with my supervisor, Jasmine said slowly. About the transfer? Ibrahim's heart sank. They said no? To his surprise, Jasmine broke into a wide smile. They said yes, and they need me to start in 2 weeks. Ibrahim stared at her, processing the news. 2 weeks? That's so soon. I know. Jasmine stepped into the garden, joining him by the rose bushes. Is that okay? Me staying here while I look for a place? It might be longer than we thought if Uncle Tariq's condo isn't ready. Jasmine, Ibrahim said, shaking his head in amazement. This is your home. Stay as long as you need. Forever if you want. Jasmine hugged him impulsively, careful not to crush the delicate rosebud he'd been tending. Not forever. But for now, yes. Until I find my feet again. Ibrahim returned the embrace, marveling at how quickly life could change. A week ago, he had been alone, resigned to a solitary existence. Now his daughter was returning home, bringing with her the promise of new beginnings. These will bloom soon, Jasmine observed, gesturing to the yellow rosebuds. Maybe by the time I get back from Chicago with my things. I believe they will, Ibrahim agreed. Just in time to welcome you home properly. Together they continued tending the garden, father and daughter working side by side in the sunlight, preparing the soil for seasons to come. Chapter 6. The Blossoming. 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Jasmine flew back to Chicago to pack up her apartment and say goodbye to colleagues. Ibrahim readied the house, clearing space in closets, fixing the squeaky hinge on Jasmine's bedroom door that had annoyed her since childhood, stocking the refrigerator with her favorite foods. On the morning of her return, this time to stay, Ibrahim stood in Amina's garden, assessing the yellow rose bushes with critical eyes. They were ready, buds on the verge of opening, needing only one more day of sunshine to coax them into full bloom. Perfect timing, he murmured, as if Amina might hear him and take credit for this small miracle. In many ways, he still felt her presence in the garden. In the arrangement of stones along the path, in the careful planning of colors and heights, in the selection of each plant for its significance, rather than simply its beauty. The roses had been her special project. Yellow for joy, she had always said. Yellow for hope. Even during her illness, she had tended them faithfully, and Ibrahim had promised to continue her care after she was gone. A promise kept, he thought, as he gently touched one of the tight buds. Like the promise he had made to himself at the airport 2 weeks ago. To reach out to his daughter, to bridge the gap between them. to rebuild what had been broken by grief and misunderstanding. The sound of a car in the driveway pulled him from his reverie. Ibrahim straightened, brushing soil from his hands, and made his way to the front of the house. Jasmine's blue rental car was pulling in, packed to the roof with boxes and suitcases. Behind it, a small moving truck contained the furniture she had decided to keep. Ibrahim watched as his daughter emerged from the car, sunglasses pushed up into her hair, a smile breaking across her face as she spotted him waiting on the porch. "Baba," she called, waving. "I made it!" "Welcome home, Habibti," he replied, coming down the steps to embrace her. "How was the drive?" "Long," Jasmine admitted, returning his hug. "But good. Gave me time to think." She glanced at the moving truck where the driver was already opening the back doors. "I didn't bring much furniture. Just my bedroom set and a few special pieces. Most of it was rented with the apartment." Ibrahim nodded. "Whatever you brought will make it fit. Your Uncle Tariq called yesterday, by the way. The condo should be ready in about 6 weeks. The current tenant needs a little extra time." Jasmine smiled. "That's perfect, actually. Gives me time to settle into the new job before moving again." She looked past Ibrahim to the house. "It's strange. I was only gone 2 weeks, but coming back feels different," Ibrahim suggested. "Significant," Jasmine corrected. "Like I'm really coming home this time, not just visiting." They spent the next few hours directing the movers, carrying boxes, and rearranging Jasmine's childhood bedroom to accommodate her adult possessions. By late afternoon, the moving truck had departed, and the house had absorbed the first wave of Jasmine's return. "Coffee?" Ibrahim offered as they collapsed onto the living room sofa, surrounded by partially unpacked boxes. Jasmine shook her head. "Maybe later. Right now, I just want to sit for a minute." She looked around the room, taking in the familiar space now dotted with her own belongings. "It's going to take some time to merge our lives." "We have time," Ibrahim assured her. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sound of neighborhood children playing outside. Finally, Jasmine spoke again. "I have something for you," she said, reaching for a small, flat package she had set aside earlier. "I found it when I was packing." Ibrahim accepted the carefully wrapped object, curiosity piqued. He unwrapped it slowly to reveal a framed photograph he had never seen before. Amina in the garden, kneeling beside a newly planted rose bush, her face alight with joy. Beside her stood Ibrahim, one hand on her shoulder, smiling down at his wife with undisguised love. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice hushed. "I took it," Jasmine explained. "The spring before Mom got sick. I was home from college for the weekend, and you were helping her plant those new yellow roses." She touched the frame gently. "I never showed it to you. After she died, I couldn't bear to look at it, so I packed it away. But when I was clearing out my apartment, I found it again." Ibrahim studied the photograph, drinking in the sight of Amina, healthy and vibrant, surrounded by the garden she loved, caught in a moment of pure happiness. "Thank you," he said simply, the words inadequate for the gift he had been given, this precious, forgotten moment preserved. Jasmine squeezed his hand. "I thought it should be here in this house, where she was happiest." Ibrahim nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. After a moment, he rose and placed the photograph on the mantel, in the center of the family gallery. "Perfect," Jasmine approved. A thought struck Ibrahim suddenly. "The roses," he said. "They're about to bloom. Would you like to see?" Jasmine's eyes lit up. "Yes, please." Together they walked out to the garden, now bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. Ibrahim led the way to the yellow rose bushes, where several buds showed the first hints of unfurling petals. "By tomorrow morning," he predicted, "they'll be fully open." Jasmine knelt beside the bushes, much as her mother had in the photograph. "They're beautiful, Baba. You've taken such good care of them." "I had a promise to keep," Ibrahim said simply. As they stood in the garden, a figure appeared at the side gate, the woman who had lived next door for as long as Jasmine could remember. Mrs. Haddad, now in her 70s, still spry despite her years. "Ibrahim!" she called, waving. "I thought I saw someone in the garden." Her eyes widened as she recognized Jasmine. "Is that little Jasmine? All grown up?" Jasmine smiled, moving to greet the elderly neighbor. "Hello, Mrs. Haddad. It's good to see you." "You're visiting your father, Mrs.?" Haddad asked, opening the gate to step into the garden. "Actually, I'm moving back to Dearborn," Jasmine explained. "I'll be staying here until my apartment is ready." Mrs. Haddad clasped her hands together in delight. "Oh, Ibrahim, how wonderful. Your daughter back home where she belongs." She turned to Jasmine. "Your father has missed you terribly, you know, though he never complains." Jasmine's eyes met Ibrahim's over the older woman's head. "I've missed him too," she said softly. "More than I realized, Mrs. Haddad nodded approvingly. "Family should be together, especially after loss." She glanced at the rose bushes. "Your mother would be so pleased to see you here among her flowers." The simple observation, offered without sentimentality by a woman who had known their family for decades, brought tears to Jasmine's eyes. "Thank you," she managed. "I think so too," after Mrs. Haddad had gone, promising to bring over her famous baklava to welcome Jasmine home properly. Father and daughter remained in the garden as twilight began to fall. The air had cooled, but neither made a move to go inside. "What are you thinking?" Ibrahim asked, noticing Jasmine's contemplative expression. She was silent for a moment, her gaze on the rose bushes. "I was thinking about the woman at the airport," she said finally. "How quickly she judged you based on your appearance. How wrong she was." Ibrahim nodded, waiting for her to continue. "And I realized," Jasmine went on, "that I did something similar after Mom died. I judged your grief, thought it wasn't deep enough, wasn't raw enough like mine. I couldn't see that you were hurting just as much, just showing it differently." She looked up at him. "I was wrong too." Ibrahim moved to sit beside his daughter on the garden bench. "We both made mistakes, Habibti, but they're in the past now." Jasmine leaned against his shoulder. "Do you think we can really start over?" "I think," Ibrahim said carefully, "that we can build something new. Not the same as before, that's impossible. But something strong and real that honors the past without being trapped by it." "Like Mom's garden," Jasmine observed. "Changing with the seasons but always cared for, always growing?" "Exactly like that," Ibrahim agreed. They sat together as evening settled over Dearborn, the garden gradually fading into shadows around them. In the morning, the yellow roses would open, a new season beginning, a promise fulfilled. "Are you hungry?" Ibrahim asked eventually. "I could make dinner," Jasmine smiled. "Actually, I was thinking we could cook together. I still need to learn that hummus recipe properly." Ibrahim chuckled. "So demanding, my daughter." "I learn from the best," Jasmine retorted, rising from the bench and offering him her hand. "Come on, Baba. We have a lot of catching up to do." As they walked back to the house, arm in arm, Ibrahim felt a peace he had not known in 5 long years. The weight of judgment, both the prejudice he had faced from strangers and the misunderstandings within his own family, seemed lighter somehow, less burdensome. In the kitchen, they moved around each other with growing ease, rediscovering old patterns and creating new ones. Ibrahim showed Jasmine the precise way to blend the chickpeas for the perfect hummus texture, while she introduced him to a spice blend she had discovered in Chicago. "A fusion," she called it with a laugh. "Like us, traditional and modern together." Later, as they sat at the kitchen table sharing the meal they had prepared, Jasmine raised her glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said. "And to healing. To family," Ibrahim added. "Apart and together." Their glasses clinked gently in the quiet kitchen, a small sound, but one that echoed with promise. Outside in the garden, unseen in the darkness, the first yellow rose of the season opened its petals to the night sky, ready to greet the morning with golden resilience, fragile yet enduring, a testament to care that transcended loss. Just like the love between a father and daughter, finding its way back to bloom after the longest winter. Wow, what a story! Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming content.